That's better. Yeah, we're live. 7:03. Took me a while to get the photo up because when they're too big, I have to send them to myself and re-edit them on my phone and then send them back and then load them because YouTube for their thumbnails will only allow a certain size. We have to make them smaller, basically. But it's all good. So tonight I want to talk to you about the video that I'm editing now, and that is a stroker video. So I've got two different types of strokers on this, and we're going to talk about these tonight. One is a 377 versus 383. Guys mention that all the time. You know, you got your big bore 377, which is a big bore short stroke version, and then the 383, which is a small bore big stroke version. Which one of those is better? So guys can argue back and forth about that. And then also on what I wanted to illustrate in this video is when you go up in displacement, you know, you put a stroker in, and I was illustrating on a Ford, but it works on anything. So when you go up in displacement, one of the things you can get away with, and a lot of people don't realize this, because we know that when we put a stroker motor combination together, that it's bigger, so it needs more airflow. So normally what people do is put bigger cams in them, put, you know, better flowing cylinder heads, different intake manifolds, all that stuff. So to help feed the extra cubic inches. But you also don't have to do that. And that's what I wanted to illustrate. And I wanted to illustrate what happens when you don't do that, when you just take and make the, you know, short block, basically have more displacement. You put a stroker in there, but retain the stock heads, cam, and intake manifold. And then how does that limit it, and where does it limit it? So that's going to be the video that's coming up. So that will be very cool. Tonight I want to talk about, because in that video we're talking about going from a 302 to a 347. So more cubic inches, more power, all of that stuff is good. And in fact, we're going to go right over to live chat. We're going to start out big. So we want to talk about going to the larger displacement, but this begs the question on the Ford application, and this probably carries through to the other ones as well. But if you're looking at a Ford and you're thinking, okay, I have a 302 and I want to go to a stroker. If you already have the 302 and then you're going to put a stroker in, that's obviously one route. If you're going to get a motor, I don't know how many people would go get a 302 and then do a stroker versus the thing that I would recommend. And I want to know what you guys feel, how you guys feel about this. If you're going to get a motor, why wouldn't you just get a 351? It's going to be a little heavier, certainly, than a 302, and probably a little heavier, honestly, than a 347, I think. The block certainly should be. But the thing is, it has more cubic inches, and it's therefore it's better. It's bigger and it's better. And like the 302 and the 347 that I'm going to talk about in that video, it's also saddled with a top end that's limiting. But on the plus side, a 351 makes a lot more torque than a 302 does. And that's really the benefit of the additional cubic inches. When you then combine that with modifications, if you're going to modify your 302 with heads, cam, and intake manifold, and you do that on a 351, the gains that you get on the 351 are even more. Because if you put a set of cylinder heads on there that have the capability of making 500, 550, 600 horsepower, because there are 600 horsepower cylinder heads available for small block Fords. They're a dime a dozen. You know, that's a 300 CFM head. If we put something like that on there, the bigger motor is going to be able to take advantage of that available airflow way more than a 302 does. You don't see very many 600 horsepower 302s. You would see a lot more 600 horsepower 351s. Honestly, you probably don't see a lot of those. If you see 600 horsepower versions of the 351, more often than not, they're a 408. they're a stroker version, but the cylinder head can feed that. That's the nice thing. And so you're putting a cylinder head that's capable of feeding a 600 horsepower 408 on your 302. Now, there are other cylinder heads that you could put on there that are not the 600 horsepower versions. There's literally a couple of dozen cylinder heads that you could put on there. Everything from the stock one to a ported stock one. In fact, somebody mentioned that, hey, Richard, you should do a test. David Vizard can port a stock set of E3 heads and have them make more power than an airflow research head. So I'd like to see that. I'd like to see if that's possible. Um, I, I a little bit have my doubts about that, but I would like to see if that's true, and I'm all for testing to see if it is. The I don't think I've ever seen a set of uh, E7TE heads, ported heads that would flow, 280 or something, which is where the an airflow research 185 head. He wasn't specific about what head he meant. Maybe he meant a 165, which would lower the bar a little bit, but still good. I mean, an E7TE head is terrible from in stock trim. It's a 160 CFM head. So to even get from there to 240 or something, that's a tall order. So I'd like to see that. That would be interesting, and being able to work with David, he might have those heads already. In which case, he could just send them to me, and I could test them and then send them back. That's a lot of shipping for iron heads, which I don't like, but still, it might be cool. And David might have done this test already because I'm sure he has access to dynos where he's at. So that might be interesting. I would like to see that. My question, and this I'm going to work this into the poll tonight. So if you're a Ford guy, would you rather opt for the 347 or would you opt for the 351? Now, 351 is going to be a little bit heavier, but it's a little bit bigger and ultimately has more potential because it could become a 408, which with a 302 you can't become a 408. And I take that back because the guys from MPG actually made a 400-inch 8.2 deck motor, which was awesome and did very well in Engine Masters. So and it was probably a CHI or Boss headed thing that they did. It was very, very impressive. So I can't say that you can't do that, but that was the exception. It'd be very, very unusual. So in my opinion, the 351 is kind of the way to go. I've never swapped a 351 into my Mustang, so I think that I should have, but I think it is the way to go. And right off the bat, it's going to be if and this is why most of us like swapping engines in there, because it's going to make a lot more torque and it's going to be a lot funner to drive. So when you mash the throttle, it's good things are going to happen. And the 351, gooder things happen a lot sooner than they do with the 302. And I'm a 302 owner. I'm an original owner of a 5-liter Mustang, and I like the car. I like the motor, but a 351 would be better in every respect. Especially after you put aluminum heads and things on it like it really needs, because it's unfortunately the factory iron heads are even more limiting on the 351. In fact, the 351 that I tested, now I don't know how representative this particular motor was, but when I ran it on the 302, the only thing that it did was make more torque than the 351 or the 302. The 351 truck motor only just made more torque. Basically, it really didn't make any more horsepower than the 302 did. So I thought that was interesting. The thing is, I don't know about the truck camshaft though. I'm thinking for some reason that way deep down inside my lizard brain that the 351 truck camshaft, this was a hydraulic roller version, is smaller than a 5-liter HO camshaft is. It almost has to be. I'm thinking so that could be part of the power difference. So somebody let me know if that's the case. I'm pretty sure that it is. It's been a long time since I worked on all the 5-liter stuff. And now if I ever have a 5-liter question, I just ask Mark because he still has all that stuff. But the 351 is good. The one thing is, going to more weight, if you're into handling like I was with my car, then that is a little bit of a downside because you're not really going to gain a bunch of weight, if any, on a 347 versus a 302. So that's nice. And also, and somebody had mentioned it, is the 351 any taller? It is. The deck height's taller. So fitting it under the hood can become a problem. So that's another issue. And then because the deck is taller, it puts, not only does it put the intake manifold up, but it pushes the heads, and the block pushes the heads out. And then header fitment can also kind of be an issue. But that's all stuff that they fixed long ago. And obviously the answer, I'm sure somebody's going to throw in there, well, you just put an aluminum LS in there and then you solve all those problems. and that is a certainly a potential. The other thing I want to mention before I forget is that I talked to Brian Tooley today, and we're going to go ahead on the 5.3 and make it 100 horsepower per liter. So we have we have a plan. We have a game plan for that. We're gonna try a couple of things that we think will probably put us there without too much of a problem. I'm a little concerned about not concerned. I'm just wish that it wasn't there. If you watch the video at wide open throttle, you'll see some smoke coming out of the exhaust. And I don't know if we're I don't know if we're losing ring seal or what the deal is. Also, I mentioned on the first live feed, the Project Motivational live feed this morning, I talked to Brian from Summit Racing and requested some. Summit Racing now offers forged 4/8 length connecting rods. So what I can do is bore the 4/8 block out to 4-inch, put 6-liter pistons in, which they have. So I can combine a forged 6-liter piston with a forged rod, and we can put that combination in and run that. And so we can kill two birds with one stone essentially by boring the thing out big enough that it can accept a 4-inch piston as long as there's enough wall thickness. And then if there is, we can run it, and I can run it with those rec port heads. We could do some testing on that as well. So that would be cool. So all of that's good stuff. I kind of wish, and I remember thinking way back with my Mustang that, man, a 351, I wish I would have known, we all wish that we knew back then what we know now, but it would have been nice to be as wrecking yard savvy, and I could have just gone down and just done a 351. It'd been a lot easier. So we'll see what you guys got going. I got to get a poll in here. If you in Windsor is better than well, I guess we'll make it a question rather than a statement. What the heck? On Windsor. And then question mark. Is a 351 Windsor better than a 347 Stroker 302? That'll be our poll for today. And then I'll go back and see what we got going on here. What's going on with my mouse? Mouse in the house. Getaway, what's up? Oh, it's not letting me scroll all the way back. Uh-oh. Richard, you're forgetting about the 351M. No, I'm not. Even more obscure than the 400, both of which, even though I'm a Mopar guy, are interesting to me. Yeah, we could have run a 351M when I did the 400, but the 400 is better because it's a 400. A lot of TBI Chevy guys got 383 bottom ends, 351 all the way. Don't forget about the Packard 378. That's obscure. Can you run nitrous before centrifugal supercharger? Yes, you can. I know you can with the roots, but not sure of the centrifugal. And if so, would a dry shot or wet shot be advised? I'd imagine a dry shot. I didn't even get to read your thoughts things. So I don't know what you mean by thoughts. Neo Mustang is working on a 387, 351 Windsor with 302 pistons and 385 crank. 400M is poor man's Cleveland. Yeah, it's a 400-inch Cleveland, although a tall deck one. All right, with 351 Cleveland laying around, should I build that or a 390 FE? Well, the Cleveland has I don't know if you have a 4V Cleveland or a 2V Cleveland, but if it's a 4V Cleveland, it definitely has the advantage in head flow over the FE stuff. Which one has better head availability? They both use the same head if you're asking about the 351 and the 302. Is the LS 408 harmonic balancer different from the stock one? Every LS damper, it's not a balancer because there's no balance. They're internally balanced. So every one of the dampers are neutral. So normally what people do is select the damper they're going to use based on where their other accessories are. So what accessory drive you're using will go with your damper. So if you're using truck accessories, then you use the truck damper. If you're using Corvette ones, then you use the Corvette ones that are tucked in. All of those, but there's no balance equation to that. And a 408 is going to be internally balanced as well. A 351 is taller, yes. If you have the money for a 347 stroker, why not do a 408 with the same money? And it would be a lot more. It'd be a lot more powerful. 347 full roller, the GT40 heads, and nitrous on a 4-speed Mustang. Cool. 600 horsepower 302 won't last long. It'll split the block in half. My factory 5 Cobra started out as a 302 and then a 331. Now, if I'm listening to Richard, it's a 408. The nice thing about having a bigger motor like a 408 is that you can make the combination milder. Like you can make it drive a lot better. One of the things I did way back when I was doing some stuff for a Cobra company is I put together a 408 and I put an Extreme Energy 274 cam in it. And the people that, because it was for a demonstrator car that they drove around, and they loved it. They loved the way that it drove. And so you can take and put a milder camshaft in a 408 or put a camshaft in and it will be milder in a 408 than it would be in a 302 or a 331 or a 347 because it's a bigger motor. So it will drive much better and you don't have to cam the heck out of it to make power and have it not be drivable. It has all the extra torque and in the case of a Cobra, you're going to have an overabundance of torque anyways. What size intake valves on the heads will fit a 94 stock Waterman roller 351 Windsor? Well, why are you worried about valve size? Are you worried about piston to valve clearance? That's going to be determined by the camshaft. Todd, what's going on? Farmers a week away from harvest and back to Sacramento. Okay. 351, 351, 351. Richard, have you ever run RHS 185 heads? I don't think the RHS heads that I've run, we've run a few of them because they had a few of them at West Tech. I thought that they were all bigger than that, though. 351 FR9. That would be a good one. 351 for strength and add boost. That's the other benefit that we didn't talk about is you're going to split 302 blocks just left and right. I don't know that that's true, but the 351 you're not going to. You definitely could make a lot more power with the 351 than you can with a 302 base motor. 351 with SC1 heads, Billy Glidden intake, and a Pro Charger. That's a good combination. I want to run the car setup for the LS408. So I don't know what you mean by car setup, but which one? There are two of them. The Corvette stuff is tucked up in closer, and then the F-body stuff is different. What would be the disadvantage to the 351? I mentioned some of those, the height and the width and a weight disadvantage. It's lots more gooder. If I go for cubic inches, I go with a 351 Cleveland. It is a good motor. They're just hard to find. We find lots of 351 Windsors from the trucks and vans in the wrecking yard, but not Cleveland's. Charles Servideo is a guy that does the E7 heads that the advisor are just talking about. .351 Windsor compared to a 302 or 351 Cleveland. I'm not comparing them to Cleveland's. We were comparing to 347 strokers. These 7 heads were the best at melting down to turn into something useful. Yeah, I thought you were gonna say to tie onto the end of a rope or a chain and hold your boat in place. Why not a Cleveland? It's a better overall platform because we don't see Clevelands in wrecking yards. We see lots and lots of. You can go to a wrecking yard and find a dozen 302 forwards and not quite as many 351s, but you can find a lot of them, especially the pre-roller stuff. There seems to be a lot of them, but I never see Clevelands. I don't say I never see Clevelands. I did see one, and I should have gotten it. I kick myself now for not getting it. 351M. The only thing I don't like about the M series motors is very BMW-esque, is that I don't like the tall deck height because the intake manifolds are few and far between. And Dan's right, they are heavy. Have you ever built a 380? I have not built a 387 with all the stuff that you're talking about. Is there any benefit of running nitrous and methanol in combination? My question would be, are you running your motor on methanol? Is it a methanol motor and then you're adding nitrous to it? Because nitrous adds to whatever's there. So are you adding the methanol as the fuel with the nitrous, or is the motor running completely on methanol? I had 351 Cleveland in a Fox body. It fit and was fun. Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, it'll fit just like a Windsor will. And actually, the Cleveland has a shorter deck. You could build a 351M though. Yeah. Yeah. What do they have for the 400 stuff? 430 or 40-inch motors? Does Brian have any plans on more LV3 parts? I think just cams and maybe an intake. A 351M is a change in stroke on the compared to the 400. I'm scrolling back. I'm scrolling. Man. Man, how far back did I go? How much horsepower would a 351? So you want to know a 387 with 205 heads make? I don't know. I don't know what 205 heads you're talking about. I don't know what camshaft you have. I don't know what compression you have. I don't know what intake manifold you have. You can take a look at, I have some 392 stroker stuff up on the channel, and you could look and see what kind of power those made. We ran some Airflow Research 205 heads on some of that stuff. Well, let's eliminate late model rods with ARP bolts. I don't know. We didn't put ARP rod bolts in ours, and we went over 1,000 horsepower. Panteras did come with 351s. Yep. I believe the intake runner length helps with the 351 over the 302. How would you run the nitrous pre-centrifugal blower? I don't know why you're trying to do that. I wouldn't run it before the blower. I wouldn't blow it into where the impeller is spinning very fast. If I'm running nitrous, I would want the nitrous to hit a lot sooner than that. And going through the blower, it's not going to do that. I would want it injected into the manifold where the nitrous is going to activate a lot sooner. Richard, we should talk about air-to-air intercooling. You just size it for the power output. There's lots of 1,000 horsepower cores out there, or 2,000 horsepower cores, whatever you want. CB Garage, what's up? I retract my pro on 302 versus 351 head. Obviously, I'm not a Ford guy. That's okay. They're the same. The only thing that's different is that you have one of them has a 1/2 inch head stud and the other one has a 7/16. So on some of the heads, especially if they were factory ones, like some of the GT40 stuff, you have to drill them out. But most of the aftermarket guys make their heads work on for the 1/2 inch head studs. I would vote for 351 because obviously 351 Windsor iron block is stronger than 302. That's true. 514 Lima motor. It's all about, yeah. The nice thing about the Ford big blocks is that you can make them very, very big, much bigger than a Chevrolet production block. It's all about cubic inch figure, 1.2 foot-pounds per torque per cubic inch for a street car. So if you go 40 cubic inches, that's 50 foot-pounds. Benefits or 1320 performance benefits or advantages between D-stroke versus a stroker. A stroker will make more power. A bigger motor makes more power than a smaller motor. So that's the most obvious thing. And all of the other things are not important after that. My 408 drag car runs 1040s at a local track. It's 3,800 feet, but the DA is usually worse. My other car with a stock bottom end 302 runs 12.4s. The 408 it's better everywhere. 393, yeah, we've put those together. Actually, the one that I ran a whole bunch was a Ford Racing crate motor. 351 with E7 heads. That's what they come with. The 205 Pro Action 408 did not break 500 horsepower. Should be pretty easy to break 500 horsepower with a 408. Does anybody know what the weight difference is between a 351 and a 302? Jonathan, I know nothing about 4.5 Penstars. Sounds like a challenge. Build a Big Bang 302 and start adding power till it splits. It will split long before a 351 does. Richard, I've heard the steep breakover angle and short skirt of the 347 piston leads to short engine life. People used to say that, and that it will burn oil and that it has a lot of side loading and all that stuff. I don't know anybody that kept a 347 long enough to actually where that actually came into play. I have a spare 302 Cleveland. Oh, that's an Australian deal. Only have it for the high compression heads and rods. Forged pistons look good. Any parts go into a 351 or bigger. Previous post was in regards to 3.6 Pensars. Yeah, I don't know anything about those motors. I just saw Fox Mustang NA running 1090s with E7, so whatever you guys say. We all said that a stock E7 flows 160 CFM, and they do. And a stock one won't run 1090s. Make a nice doorstop. 500 horsepower 351 just takes boosts in management. Can we get some information on keeping a stock 351 Windsor crank alive? You're not. I don't think you're going to hurt the stock crank. If we've done stuff that's more than 1,000 horsepower on them, so I don't think you're going to hurt the stock crank. You need to make sure that it gets oiled. I'll give you a general kick for not buying an open chamber 4V351 in Cleveland. I know, and it was all there, the air cleaner, everything. We're seeing truck coyotes in the junkyard, or are we? I haven't seen any. I saw one truck that would have had the Coyote in it, but the Coyote engine was gone. Is a 195 AFR Eliminator going to be too much head for a 351? No. Nope, that's a really good head. Man, I don't know why it goes so far. Okay, here we go. I've never run methanol on anything, so I don't know. I haven't done any testing on it. There were a lot of nice cars at Livermore yesterday. Oh, you went to a car show? Using a 50/50 water meth with a 300 horsepower dry shot on my Ford ST Edge. Bought a Ranger 3-liter 94. Gonna see what I can do with them. Already put the L67 injectors in it. So are you going to be able to tune it? Is a 302 considered smaller than a small block Chevy? No. They're both small blocks. But it's, Dan was chiming in about it being lighter, but they're both considered small blocks in when people are talking about them. How much larger is a 351 Windsor than a 302? Deck height is 8.2 on a 302 and 9.5 on a Windsor. This is the only live stream YouTube will throw a commercial in the middle of. That's how I roll. If the online conversion I found is accurate, this 1950 CFM capable intercooler should theoretically be able to deal with 2,000 horsepower. How do they flow that? Like, what's the depression that they flow that at? Are they flowing it under pressure? What are they doing? Just asking if a 2V Cleveland head is better than a 2V Cleveland head is better than an E7 Windsor head. No, Admiral, if your intercooler is oversized, it's not going to create a problem on your undersized or underpowered motor. William, a 408 makes more power, and yes, stock 351 Windsor heads are not good. The only reasonably good one were like this, I think the 69s, which were about what a GT40 head is. So if you want to put a stockish kind of head on it that's better than those, put a GT40 head on. I drilled a set of GT40 iron heads by hand. You got to watch out with some of those drills. Some of those are two-handers, definitely. Did you have a MAF on your AR500? I saw the temp and PSI. How did you calculate the flow? We didn't calculate the flow. We actually had an air turbine on it that we use to measure the actual airflow while we're running a motor, and we just attached that to the blower and spun the blower with the motor. Can I turn a 4.8 into a 6-liter? You would, yeah, you could bore it to 4 inches and then put a 5.3 crank and rod and the 6-liter piston in it. But it probably, I'm going to try it, but we're worried about the wall thickness. I don't think it has the wall thickness that it needs. Either way, with a 347 or a 351. As far as CID on the EFI engine, I've seen 430 foot-pounds on GT40s. Lower stock EFI intake was ported, but not the plenum, nor an aftermarket throttle body. So what is that? .22. Okay. I know, but that's 1.22 foot-pounds. That's not an unusual amount. That's 370 foot-pounds from a 302. So that's not a. I mean, that's good, but it's not out of the range of. It's not out of the range of possibility. Because 1.22 foot-pounds per cubic inch is not. I mean, that's a normal streetcar kind of area. 52 pounds difference on the 302 versus the 351. Have you ever tested a 69 351 head? I have not. I haven't seen one of those heads for a really, really long time. I'm only going off what the old guys were telling me about them. Richard, do you think there would be a market for non-exotic kit cars such as S10s, G-bodies, 90s trucks where people could buy something new without a drivetrain if they wanted something basic and simple? I just don't know about the market for new ones of those. If guys are getting those from the wrecking yard, once they're not there, then that might be an option. Do you know of any off-the-shelf LS cams with very tight lobe separation angles? So you just want it to chop? I mean, there are lots of cams you could put in there that will have a bad idle. So Nick, you're going to cure your rich mixture with just more airflow. Thought top fuelers only ran 8,600. 13,000 seems like a lot to me. Run your 3-inch Windsor with rod clearances, make it happy. Okay. Yeah, 1090s wasn't. No, we know that that's not stock heads. Any testing done on a Brodex IKF 215 head for a small block Ford? You have to look and see. We ran Brodex heads on the big head test, I think. I don't remember which ones they were, though. What's the best head to use on a 351 Windsor for boost, 76 millimeter turbo and a blow through carb? There isn't a best head for that. There's a dozen or more heads that will work just fine. All the NASCAR engines are running 2-inch mains and 188 rods. See, I could have turned my crankshaft down and make it a NASCAR crank. I feel like running methanol on a dyno in an enclosed space is not a healthy idea. No, we don't want to stand in the dyno when they're running a methanol motor. That's not good, because they have run some of those at Westech. Mahovitz ran methanol on some of those standing mile motors that he did. Michael, you voted for the 9.5 deck, but I have an 8.2 since it's needed to fit in a 66 Mustang. Yeah, I do like the 66s, though. Those are nice. Stock 2V Cleveland heads with the 204 intake can do 205 CFM. That's a lot more than a Windsor head. Caleb, jumping in late, watching you on Apple TV, but I hear you had a complete 351 Cleveland in the yard and didn't get it. I've loaned you the money. It probably wasn't very much, although it was in the area, the like special area where they put things that are things that they want to overprice, basically, because it used to be like a classic kind of car area that they had. They've got all kinds of stuff in there. Lots of Buicks there the last time I saw there, but this was a 72 or 73. I think it was a Torino or something, but the motor was a 4V Cleveland, and it was complete. Everything was there. Still had the stickers on it and everything. Listed this intercooler as a 1300 horsepower efficient. Okay. Is the air turbine some high-tech device used on the dyno? Yes and no. It is used on the dyno. It's not high-tech. It's a propeller spin in a proprietary shaped cone, basically, that you stick on top of a carburetor. It's an air hat, basically, that you stick on top of a carburetor, and it has a propeller in it, and it measures airflow as air gets drawn through, and it has like honeycomb in it to air straighteners, basically, so that it goes through the spinny blade the way that it's supposed to, and then it measures airflow. But it's not proprietary to the blower. It's actually normally used on theirs is most often used on carburetors. Lots of people use them, just connect them to a tube, and then you connect them to throttle bodies and stuff. So you can measure airflow of anything. And that's why I did the blower, Super Ritchie blower dyno the way that I did. I don't know about California, but it's hard to find good junkyard 350 small blocks. There's lots of them here. Plenty of cams have a bad idle. They do. You can get all the chop that you want, but that's the thing. Lots of people like that. That's not the thing for me, but I understand that people watch. There's videos of guys like having idle clips of listening to the idle, listening to the thing have a rough idle, and people watch that and love it. That's not my thing, but it is for a lot of people. Godzilla swap. What valve springs are people running on GT40P heads? I don't know. We just science it out and look in the comp catalog. Seems like the old guys remember airflow differently than my flow bench. I'm remembering flow numbers from the flow bench. My question is, what's better between the three different engines? What is it you're trying to do? You got to tell me what thing you're trying to achieve. If you're going to a wrecking yard and trying to find one, a 351M or a 351W is going to be easier to find. You're not going to find a Cleveland. You'll find one of the other two. And so those will be available and affordable, much more than a Cleveland. A 351 Cleveland, out of all those, would probably ultimately make the most power if it was a 4V Cleveland, if it were all stock. Once they're aftermarket, then the sky's the limit for all of them, except for the 351M, because it's a tall deck block and there's limited intake manifolds available for them. So then it would be between a Windsor and a Cleveland, because there's really good heads available for both of those now. If you could, would you run 2 Honda heads on the V8 Honda? Somebody else is doing that, and I reached out to him. We talked a little bit about it. I was hoping that he got it done. I don't know if he ever finished it up. I'm loving all the 408 talk. I'm just dropping pistons in mine. Nice. There is a V8 Hayabusa. I thought that they did that. John, you have 13 engine blocks, 64 to 68, 68 to 71 LT1s, and a couple of 283s, plus a 69 DZ Z28. If anyone's interested. Cool. No big blocks? Run 10% nitropropane. What is the best flowing head you've ever seen per inch of displacement? So now I got to do math in my head to figure out what the flow is. And are you talking about stock heads or modified heads, or what are you talking about? Richard, you have many tests with rectangular port cams meant for limited valve piston clearance. What happens with more and more cam timing when you have enough valve relief in the piston? So did you watch the tests that we did on the 427 at Brian's place with the rec port heads and the cathedral port heads and the LS7 heads and the LS3 heads with lots of camshaft in them with valve relief, so that you could put camshafts in them? Have you found to be worth changing a cam to go from a 235, 239 on 111 to a 236, 244 to 114? Why are you wanting to change that? And what is it you're trying to achieve? Let's see. Yeah, Caleb, I know it would have been if it was definitely big money. Probably could have sold the air cleaner for big money. I know, but I was leaving the next day, and so I was like, I'm not going to do this. I don't have room for another engine. That one I should have made room for. Yeah, the the tight LSA. But why? Just talk to one of the cam manufacturers. They can sell you a cam that has that idle quality that you want, because it's valve events that's doing that. 320 CFM at 500 lift is pretty good. What's an only Uger? People shout for overlap. I don't understand it. Baseball cards and a bicycle. No, that's cool. My cam is negative 26 degrees overlap. 26 degrees underlap. That's good. It's already 600 horsepower, 6.2 LS, ton of RAM, dual 650s, like gasser. Needs to look cool, sound good. So how is it making 600 horsepower? What cam is in it now? First head's ever worked on assembled the 3-angle valve job. Actually, a 351 in Cleveland. David Vizard sold the E7TE heads a few months ago. What's the horsepower boost range one should start considering running an intercooler on a stock bottom end 5.3 single turbo build? Anywhere from 0 to 1 psi. Man. I have a 44,000 mile 305, putting an RV cam in it. I don't know about your air snorkel on your C10, but cam and lifters and springs are normally what, if you're going to put the cam in it. Is there a specific size cutoff between small block and big block? That's often argued. 350 would kind of be there, but Chevrolet made a 400 in small block. So does that mean Pontiac, a 400 Pontiac is a small block? Well, none of the Pontiac blocks are small blocks or big blocks because Pontiac doesn't make those. Just make that statement to a Pontiac guy and he'll lose his mind. And if a 400 small block is a small block, is a 383 Mopar a small block? No, that's a big block, obviously. So there's all sorts of points of contention there. Well, John, that was nice of the auctioneer to give you the 402. Does octane booster really add octane? I've been told by chemists that no, it doesn't. But when I was talking to them, they hadn't tested every one of them. Is the AMR 500 on the way to? Is that supposed to be Kennyville? No, it's not because I just did a live feed this morning with it. Today would be the first day that I could have sent it out, anyways. Have you messed with modifying swirl port heads? I have not. Dan, there's somebody on YouTube who casts his own Ford parts. He has crossboss intakes. Man, that would be cool. Gary, thank you for pointing people our way. I'm at 10 to 1 or so. My car doesn't like to idle well. It seems, I'm sure that's laggy running 87. Even a cheap octane booster smooths out idle, and I notice a decent acceleration. Is it cheaper? Isn't it cheaper for you just to put 91 in it then? Did you ever meet Foose or Leno or other celebrities? Jay used to run stuff at West Tech. I didn't meet him because I always talked to his guy that was in charge of his shop. What's his name? Came over. Not. I don't think it was Foose. I don't think it was Chip. It's the guy who's putting together like the Duesenberg. He was actually pretty cool. We talked a lot about the Miller engines, and he's like, "Oh, so you know about these things?" I said, "I don't really know that much." I said, I read a little bit." I said, "But I know what I like." I said, "This is awesome. This is an awesome detail." Find VP Octanium to work very well. John, your 302 is finally down to machine shop. It's a 311. AFR head, single plane manifold, 650 carb, bootlegger. Well, that's good. Just want to say thanks for all the information. Thanks for joining us and being part of it all. My 427 is a small block. Yep, you can make a 427 small block. In fact, we did a 460-inch Ford small block based on a 351. So you could you have a big block size small block. Turco works and Boustain works. John, I don't remember your. John, look at the second head test for the 302 stuff. That was a 331 with a mild cam in it, and it had airflow research heads on it and stuff. So you could kind of look and get an idea. Recently noticed a lot of water in the catch can by 2JZ. Wait, why am I just hearing about you have the 2JZ? In a very high flow head, will a long cam duration lose power? It will lose power down low, but usually bigger cams will make more power on the top. That's a very generalized statement, but that's what tends to happen. So if you have a 210 cam and then you put in a 230 cam, the 230 cam will usually make more peak power. Nathan, your 4060, good luck with that unless it's built up. A 7875 from VS Racing is fine. I would get a Gen 2 or something. A stage 4 truck cam is definitely not what I would pick, but that's all on you. You got gears and you got a converter on it, so. With gas prices the way they are, it's actually cheaper for me for run $87.05 for octane booster per fill up. Okay. Todd was on the live chat earlier. Okay, now I've scrolled back. Alcohol is hydroscopic, yes. David Visor has a video of the dyno test on Ford heads. He has a video making 289 heads work, which I think a 289 head's even worse than an E7TE head is, right? High store port head guide, pocket port heads, if headers are long enough, tubes of rockers, 165, shorter cam, Q-jet. Okay. Richard, do you need weight reductions on your builds? Like on the engine? Do I try to take weight off of the engine when I'm running it on the dyno? I don't know why I would do that. So waiting on the 396 video, me too. John, you split 4 blocks in half of the 302. What power levels, and were you running blowers or something on them? I feel like I'm in class every evening. I can answer those 2 questions. I forgot. You got to write them down. Did Turbo Monza ever finish porting those heads for you? I haven't heard from him in forever. What about the advisor? Did he get the head? He got the 2.2 head. I have that. You got an Elderbrock Vera injection? Man, that's old school. Ooh, Rensport at Laguna Seca. Those are cool. I would talk about Duesenbergs if I had one. I've only ever seen the engine that they took out, and all the Duesenberg people were crazy mad because he was going to put it in some sort of hot rod. Boost, are you talking about building a car or building the engine? This is usually an engine channel, so I was a little confused. If you're talking about taking weight off of the car, then yes, all the road race cars that I've done were all very weight conscious. You did paint jobs on guns? Is that what you're talking about? Michael, mid 9s would be fine. The 289 GT40 heads from 66 to 67 were great heads. They're like gold to those people that still have them. Yeah. Why don't you just have Gurney Westlake heads on it? And it's the one about the AMR. Yeah, the AMR thing that I was talking about this morning, I was showing people where things were restricting and where they weren't restricting and where they were making pre-boost and then boost. Oh, it's already been an hour. 7.3 there, double overhead cam, 4 valve per cylinder. Yeah, they did it upright. So is a 351 Windsor better than a 347 Stroker? 75% are saying yes. A 917 is 20 million. Wow. No, I understand. I understand the rifles too, but Bruce Camp had the 917-30 in a showroom 10 years ago. Was it the Donahue one? That's cool. I remember sitting in a 962 making car noises over at Osco Performance over at Dennis Ozzy's place. On that note, it is time to go. 106. We've been here a long time. Thank you guys all for showing up. I will see you all tomorrow. Budget Porsche. That's rich.